if you're listening to this podcast episode when it's released, that means you're listening at one of my favorite times of the year. It's October. So here in the Southern Hemisphere, things are starting to warm up more consistently. But also we are seeing Christmas decorations in the stores and everyone's getting ready in the lead up to Christmas. I've already put up my Christmas tree. Yes, I needed it, so I just did it. But it's also one of my favorite times to be online because people start to ask questions about business planning. It's planner season. I've seen ads in socials for new and shiny planners, and people are really starting to think about what they're going to do for their business plan for next year. But the thing that I love about it is that it's actually a brilliant time to be more effective and be more productive in your business now. And in today's episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast, I'm going to share with you my top 3 rules for planning and productivity. And I think you'll find them really helpful, regardless of whether you're someone who really loves productivity and organization or someone who thinks that it's just not the way they were built. This is episode number 422 of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. So you can find all the relevant links and the show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/422. Let's dive in. Hello, I'm Tash Corbin, a business strategist and mentor based on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. The mission of this podcast is to help heart-centered entrepreneurs to make more money and in doing so, change the world for the better. This podcast was recorded on the lands of the Gubbi Gubbi and Jinnaburra people. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Okay, so yes, I am a business planning and strategy specialist. I have worked with every size of business between solo entrepreneur doing it on their own all the way up to being responsible for the business planning for an organization with over 10,000 people and a divisional business planning manager as well. My division was 2,500 people in that role. So I have a lot of experience and a lot of different volumes of business plan that I've worked with in the past. Now, I also have created so many different tools and strategies that I've helped people to implement in their own businesses because I absolutely love and adore helping people to find their zone when it comes to having a clear plan and being very productive and effective in their business. But I want to be very clear that the way that I help people to create and implement their business plan is always designed through the lens of what is going to be most effective for the individual, what is actually the most likely to be effective and work, and for you to actually want to open it and work with it very consistently. And so over the years of working with people on their business plans and also having now facilitated the Heart Centered Business Planning System for 10 years, I have collected for you my top 3 rules when it comes to planning and productivity. And as I said at the start of the show, these may actually surprise you. So my first rule for planning and productivity is be a kind boss. Now, when I say be a kind boss, for most people listening to this podcast, they are the boss and they are also the worker in their business, right? We have different hats that we have to wear and we have different roles that we have to take on as the owner of a business. But when it comes to being clear on your plan and maximizing your productivity, one of the most effective things that you can do to ensure that you get things done and that you're being strategic is to be kinder to yourself and be a kind boss. So the way that I visualize this for myself is that I actually separate myself out into 2 different people. So there's boss Tash and there's worker Tash. And so if worker Tash is struggling to get things done because she doesn't actually know what's a priority, then it's boss Tash's job to help her with that clarity. So I want you to think about it. If you were working in an organization and you had a team of people and someone in your organization came to you and said, look, I am really keen to contribute to the outcomes of this organization. I'm very passionate about what this organization stands for. I really feel like it's my zone of genius and I really, really want to do an amazing job. But when I sit down at my desk, I have no idea what to focus on. If you were that person's boss, you wouldn't just say to them, oh, figure it out. You as the boss would be kind. You as the boss would help to create the structure and clarity that that person needs because you can see the potential in them. And so, dear listener, I can see the potential in you, and I know that you can see it in yourself. You can see the potential in your business. That's why you're so excited to create it and to build it. But worker you might not be as effective and productive as you might like, and you might be feeling a bit frustrated with yourself. But in most cases, that's not because you need to be tougher on yourself. You need to be meaner to yourself. You need a complete personality transplant and to change who you are intrinsically at the core. It's because your boss self has not been as kind to you as maybe they could have. That's what you need. You need kindness. You need to get some understanding of, well, what is it that you need in order to be your productive self? And to deliver on that with absolute kindness. So yes, I absolutely am here for all of the planning tools and the productivity tools and the setting timers and rewarding yourself and all of those sorts of things. But everything that I recommend when it comes to business planning and productivity always comes through the lens of kindness. One of the big realizations that a lot of people who do the Hearts and Business Planning system with me is that they've been trying to be more effective in their business by being more cruel to themselves, by being a tough boss on themselves. And all it's doing is bringing out their inner rebel, or it's creating so much micromanagement that they aren't able to be effective and they aren't able to move and be flexible with what is happening in the business. So rule number 1 is be a kind boss, and in particular, be a kind boss to yourself. Rule number 2 is make the plan work for you. Make the system work for you. And this might, again, seem like, oh, wow, like I thought you sold an entire planning system, Tash. Like, aren't you telling us like we should do the planning system? Don't you think that we should follow the structure that you've set out for us? But actually, the structure and framework of the Heart-Centered Business Planning System is actually just the skeleton of that framework. And the thing that we do together throughout our year is we actually build a planning process and system within that is completely personalized to the individual. So if you are struggling to implement your business plan, I want you to, instead of trying to figure out what you need to change about yourself or how you need to change your behaviors, I want you to actually look at that process, look at that plan and ask the question, why don't I engage with this? Why is this not working for me? And rather than make the reason why it's not working for you, the problem is you. I'm just not like that. I'm just not the planning kind. I'm just not a very productive person. Instead of making up stories about why you are somehow wrong or broken or unable, instead, I want you to pay attention. Well, what is it that you do need? What is it that you need from this that would actually make it feel like it worked for you? So some of the things that I do to make my planning system and my productivity tools work for me is I use a lot of color, I use a lot of stickers, and I use lots and lots of beautiful, gorgeous stationery and Post-it notes. And I have what is a priority for me visible to me at all times. So I use my planner in a way that really works for me. And I've crafted that system to really tap into what my strengths are. But also I've created a planning system and a process for myself that means it's perfectly designed for me. And the things that I normally used to get angry at myself about for not being able to sort it. So for example, avoiding Asana, right? I would avoid opening Asana, which is a task management system. I just didn't want to open it because it was consistently full of red tasks because everything was always behind and there was just 1,000 things to look at and it was really overwhelming. So whenever I opened Asana, my first job was to spend 25 minutes cleaning up Asana. And then by the time I'd done that, I felt exhausted. That's not my zone of genius. That's not something that makes me feel excited and fulfilled, like reshuffling tasks on a task board. So what I needed to do was look at, well, why am I not looking at this? Why am I avoiding engaging with this process? And one of the reasons why I was avoiding it was overwhelm. Looking at a giant list of 55 things that are overdue makes me feel like a failure and it makes me feel overwhelmed. And then it gives me decision fatigue. None of those things are strength areas that are in my wheelhouse that make me feel like I'm going to be a success at the end of the day. So that's exactly the reason why I created my planning system in the way that I created it. It's that it feeds me 3 to 4 things at a time, and that's all I can see. And that's all I need to see. And until those things are done, I don't need to look at anything else. So every day I have generally 3 things on my to-do list, and every day I am very likely to get those 3 things done. So every day I feel like a success. So every day I'm getting dopamine hits that say, you are on top of everything, Tash. You are amazing. Look at you go. Even though, yes, there probably are 1,000 extra tasks that I could do, they are not the ones that I decided I am going to do today. Therefore, I don't need to see those. And so some days I get my 3 tasks done by 9:30 in the morning and then I knock off for the day. I'm done. That's it. Other days I get my 3 tasks done pretty early in the day and then I get really excited and I think, okay, I'm going to go and find 3 more things that I want to do because I feel like it. So I'm not rebelling against myself. There's no micromanagement happening, but I've created a system that really works for me. Now, in saying all of these things, may have planted a seed for you that maybe you need to reduce the size of your to-do list, or maybe Asana isn't the best business planning tool for you. It's great for task management. I don't actually think it's good for business planning, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I want you to just remember the core lesson here. Make it work for you. But you can't make something work for you if you don't actually have anything in place. You can't adjust your business plan if you've never crafted a business plan. You can't pay attention to why you're avoiding your plan or you're not being as productive if you don't make any attempt at actually producing something. So action is the way that we adjust our planning and productivity systems to get them to work for us. You've got to get back up on the horse, yeah? Which brings me to rule number 3, don't give up trying. Don't give up on trying to find it. There are lots and lots of business plans, templates, processes, things that I've set up for myself that I don't use anymore. But I didn't give up trying. Now I have landed on a structure to my day, my week, my month, my quarter, and my year that is perfectly designed for myself and that I use consistently and effectively, and it does a brilliant job. I love opening my business plan. I love implementing my business plan. I love opening my planner each day and seeing what's on the agenda. I love how productive and effective I am. And my productivity is not how many hours a day can I squeeze out of myself. My productivity is how quickly can I get my top 3 tasks done today. And so for me, being productive often looks like a 90-minute workday. For me, being productive often looks like a 10-hour work week. I've had a really productive week this week. Yeah. Because I didn't create a business to work myself all hours. I didn't create a business so that I could do a 40-hour work week as though I was going to a job. I created a business because I wanted a life and I wanted to create financial freedom whilst also enjoying the lifestyle at the same time. So don't give up trying. If you find a business planning tool and you're putting it in place, but you're avoiding it, that doesn't mean that business planning tool is not for you at all. It just means that there's something about it that isn't quite working for you. So sometimes there's some finessing on how you use it, or you use it slightly differently. But sometimes it just means we've got to look for something different or use different strategies to engage with it. Now, I want to give you a little example here. So one of the things that I struggled with several years ago now was I felt like I had a really clear idea of what I wanted to prioritize for the day each day. But as soon as I sat down at my desk, I was looking at my inbox and looking at my Slack messages from my team and looking at my social media DMs. And so I felt like my day started by looking at what everyone else wanted me to do that day. And so it would often mean that if I wanted to finish my work day at 1 p.m. so that Davey and I could go to the movies, then at 12 o'clock, an hour before I'm meant to finish up for the day, I'm only just now starting to look at, well, what were my priority tasks for today? And so I felt like I kept starting my day focused on what everyone else wanted first, rather than focusing on the things that I wanted to focus on for the day. And my fix for that came in a really bizarre way, but it wasn't the first fix that I tried. So I tried creating a bit more discipline for myself, that I wouldn't open my inbox until I'd opened my business plan. I had a friend help me set up my Google Chrome so that whenever I went to open the internet to look at Facebook or look at something, it would open my business plan and remind me what was on my business plan. But often, my business plan, especially my quarterly, week by week business plan, there's a lot going on there. And so I don't need to look at that every single day. But I did have a day planner, but I just never kind of got to it. Another thing happened, and that was that my laptop crashed halfway through recording some modules for one of my group programs. And when my laptop crashed, and then I had to go get it all rebooted and get it restarted, and David, my partner, is very techie. He had a look at it. Something that we saw was that there was a lot of temporary memory usage, i.e. I wasn't shutting down and restarting my computer often enough, and my poor laptop was just overloaded and overwhelmed. And it was actually in looking at that I realized that there were two things going on at the same time. Yes, my laptop was a little overwhelmed and overloaded. It wasn't getting a restart at the end of each day, but my brain was also feeling the same. At the end of each day, I was trying to carry in my brain some things I have to remember for tomorrow. And so the habit that I started doing, which I've talked about in previous podcast episodes, was that at the end of each day, I actually open up my planner for the next day and I write down what are the key tasks that I'm going to be doing tomorrow as part of my end of day routine. And then I shut down my computer, I close the laptop lid, and I put my planner on top of my laptop. So it's a very physical change to the way that I operate and the way that I end and start my day. Because every day when I sit down at my desk to start work, I pick up my planner first. So every day I pick up my planner, I open it up to today's date. I look at what are my top tasks for today. And if I didn't know what they were yesterday, or I only had a couple of them and now today I'm starting afresh and I know how I'm feeling for the day, I might write down a couple of extra tasks. So usually I'll have 3 or 4 tasks each day. I try to keep it to 3 as much as I can. And then I work on those tasks. So because I physically have to pick up the planner and open it, and I see what those tasks are, most days I do work on those tasks before I open my emails and before I open Facebook or Slack or anything where anyone else can communicate with me. Because of that change, that little tiny change of the way that I operate things. Number one, I don't leave tabs open overnight, so I'm not leaving tabs open in my brain as well. But also, number two, I'm far more productive. I get so much more done each day. And it also means that when I then go to look at emails and answer people's questions and engage on social media, I do it having already nailed my top tasks for the day. So I'm doing it with a lot less anxiety about, oh, now I've got to get through this really quickly because then I have to get on and get these other things done. No, I'm done. I am done. So it was changing the physical way that I shut down at the end of each day that actually changed the way that I engaged with my business plan. So rule number 3, don't give up trying. Now, if all of this talk about planning and productivity has got you curious to experiment with some new strategies and tools, I have 2 fabulous resources for you in the show notes of today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/422. The first is my free quarterly planning process and template. And that quarterly planning process and template can be used regardless of when it is. You don't need to start on the very first of each quarter. It's your opportunity to engage with your business strategy in a way that you are prioritizing and understanding where you need to focus your energy and attention to maximize the chance that you achieve your goals. So I've got that for you over with the show notes of today's episode, but I will also include the link to the Heart-Centered Business Planning System so that you can check that one out. And if doors are open, you'll be able to join us, or if it's waitlist time, you'll be able to jump on the waitlist. The Heart-Centered Business Planning System is a year-long program in which we set your goals and agenda and focus for the year together. And then we set about going and achieving those goals in implementable, highly effective short bursts. Think of them like quarterly sprints. So we break up your year into these 4 quarters and we maximize the effectiveness, productivity, and lifestyle that you get to experience in each of those 4 quarters. The Heart-Centered Business Planning System was established in 2014. This is our 10th year of using the system and for me facilitating this process. So I hope you can come and join us and check it all out over with the show notes at tashcorbin.com/422. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. And until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now.